Okay, we're here today with Clayton Rice. Clayton is, my name's Alan Pierce, I'm off camera. Clayton is obviously, to the Calgary group, is one of the best known criminal defense lawyers in Calgary and well known throughout Alberta, frankly, well known throughout Canada, I'm sure, but definitely we in Calgary know who Clayton is. He's been practicing for 35 years. He's a rock bed criminal defense lawyer. He's very well known for, among many things, doing large gangs and guns cases and drug work and the high-end drug work. And as stated, he's a good 35 years at the bench, or the bar rather. Clayton, this is the first in a series dealing with advice for younger lawyers, and Clayton has very graciously agreed to do this, and then I'm going to put it up on YouTube. And again, this comes in Calgary, and I suspect throughout the rest of the country. There's a long tradition of this, not necessarily putting it up on YouTube, but in older lawyers sharing their wisdom really with the younger bar. Definitely, when I started out, I received tons of advice, practical advice. You know, this is how you deal with the clients, this is how you deal with this is how you file a charter notice, types of things. The criminal bar is exceptionally collegial, the defense bar is exceptionally collegial on that. And this is really an extension of that. Clayton has, of course, taken time out of his busy day specifically to meet with me here at the Calgary courthouse, and I'm personally very happy. I'm very glad you did that, Clayton.
Well, the pleasure's mine, Alan.
Excellent. So now I know you had a couple points you wanted to go through. You were one thing that young lawyers might want to know about. They might be overwhelmed, or they might need good time management skills. Maybe you could talk about that.
Yes, I thought this topic might be of interest to younger lawyers, as it is generally of interest to the practicing bar universally. And ongoing. Lawyers are always looking for better ways to accomplish competent service for their clients as efficiently as possible. And I think traditionally, young lawyers coming into the practice of criminal law can get overwhelmed within the first year or two because the learning curve is high. Managing people is a skill that's learned over time. Managing the commitments with the courts often conflicts with that. And operating a young practice in order to accomplish financial goals, which are paying the monthly bills and hopefully generating income, are all tensions that lawyers experience dramatically, I would say, within the first 3 years of practice. One of the things that criminal lawyers generally don't do is keep time records. I don't know how many times I've heard it in my career, oh, I don't keep time records because I bill by a flat fee and the client is aware of what that fee will be for the case, irrespective of the outcome. And traditionally, criminal lawyers have practiced on that basis. Some criminal lawyers who may do some amount of work in other areas, civil litigation, for example, may acquire experience with contingent fees. But predominantly in the criminal bar, it's flat fee driven.
Right. That's definitely my own practice, and I think you're right. That's the standard that we've always had, for sure.
That's right, and of course I do as well.
Right.
But one thing a flat fee does not do is give you a picture of your time management. I don't know how many times I bump into lawyers and they're shaking their heads on Monday morning wondering how they managed to book 8 files for 9:30 in docket courts and trial courts at the same time. Right. And one test that I was urged to apply to myself many years ago was take a 1-month period and keep time records. just for that 1 month.
Right.
Set yourself an hourly rate, a notional hourly rate as a junior lawyer. It doesn't really matter what it is, because it's not the hourly rate that's the question here. But set a notional hourly rate and be diligent about keeping time records for the month. And you can find a time record keeping system that will work for you. They're very basic. And most lawyers would probably have done that in their articling year to some extent. And at the end of the month, total up your hours worked and take a look at the bank account. And ask yourself this question: in making this amount of money that is generated income at the end of the month, and taking into account any receivables that may be coming in, such as there may be a bail assignment on a file that hasn't come in, and then extrapolate from that the hours that you worked, the billable hours that you worked to generate that income. And I think the answer, certainly was with me, was that I was working disproportionately to the earned income.
Right.
But what the hourly, keeping the time records does for you is it gives you, it quantifies it. It gives you an idea of how many hours per week you're actually working. And because you forget as a busy month goes by.
Right.
And then once you see that you're working 60 hours a week and it's not translating into a reasonable proportionate income at the end of the month, that the practice is not generating revenue that equates with that investment of time, you know that things have to change.
Right.
And I think that that is good advice for young lawyers. As I said, I applied it to myself.
Right.
And at the time when I did, I was reasonably young at the bar, I would say within the first 5 years.
Right.
But I was doing quite a bit of appellate work. Not at the Court of Appeal level, but summary conviction appeals and some Court of Appeal work, sentence appeals and so forth. Writing factums is extremely time consuming. And I discovered that something had to go.
Right, sure.
Because,
especially with appellant work, it's incredibly labor intensive.
Exactly.
Right.
And I continued to do appellate work, but it became a much reduced part of my practice.
Fair enough.
And it was becoming somewhat of a conflict with trial work. It's hard to be a productive, well-prepared trial lawyer and be sitting in the office at night writing factums. So to keep myself on topic here, the question is time management. And I think the point I'm driving at is that in the early years of practice, most of us aren't sensitive to that.
Right.
We're driven by trial date to trial date, appearance in docket courts, interviewing clients and preparing cases. And it's easy to lose sight of the extensive hours that are going into that. And one thing that I did eventually in my practice is that I realized I needed, and this didn't come early, this came, I was probably practicing for 10 years. I realized that I needed time during the week away from the courthouse.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I was in court 5 days a week,
right.
So it meant I was working a 7-day week because everything else was being done on the weekends.
And when you're younger and you're building a practice, that's probably appropriate. I mean, you want to get them in court as much, but yeah.
So I started not booking trials on on Fridays. And it left Fridays open for doing other things. Maybe a bail application in the morning, or a new client that normally I would have to see on a weekend, I could now see on a Friday.
Right.
And I know other lawyers have done the same thing. Some have picked Monday mornings, no trials Monday mornings. I get a chance, and they would try and do their docket for the week on Monday mornings. All docket appearances would get booked Monday mornings. And they would go to court fully expecting to spend a half day in the docket courts on Monday mornings, and they would schedule from there. So they weren't bouncing back and forth in the docket courts all week long. I know we can't control when the police make appearance notices and other charging documents returnable, but once the files come into the lawyer's office, you have some input and
Right.
control over the docket court process. I now tend not to book anything on Fridays. Doesn't mean I'm not in the office and
Right.
working.
Right. You're working and doing the prep work for the following week, right?
You've got other work to
Right.
do. You've got law office management
Sure.
issues to deal with. If you're in a space share arrangement, there may be issues that you need to talk to associates or staff about. And you can get the law office management done during the week without chasing people in the evenings and on the weekends.
Right.
So those are some, I wouldn't call it rigid
Right.
things to look at, but they are valid considerations
Right.
with respect to your